Instead of riding a wave of momentum from this weekend's conservative summit in Washington, the top Republican presidential candidates found themselves trying to clean up after the mess left by Speaker Ann Coulter. But in the third story on our countdown tonight, are Republicans outraged enough to end their cycle of giving Coulter a platform only to denounce afterwards what she says on the platforms they keep giving her? Rudy Giuliani told the New York Times her remark Friday was, quote, completely inappropriate. John McCain spokesman, wildly inappropriate. Mitt Romney's spokesman called it offensive. But when she actually made her remarks at the Conservative Political Action Committee, not everyone was exactly booing.
I was going to have a few comments on the other Democratic presidential candidate, John Edwards, but it turns out that you have to go into rehab if you use the word faggot. So kind of at an impasse, can't really talk about Edwards, so I think I'll just conclude here and take your questions. Thank you.
Romney, in particular, is feeling the heat today. He not only won a semi-endorsement from Coulter, he also gave her a glowing introduction Friday, despite the fact that she has used similar language before, most notably last July during an appearance on Hardball.
How do you know that Bill Clinton's gay?
He may not be gay, but Al Gore, total fag. No, I'm just kidding.
Not to mention last year's CPAC, where Coulter notoriously used the term ragheads. All of this today leading a growing list of prominent conservative bloggers to call on CPAC and its sponsors not just to denounce Coulter, but to ban her from future events because she distracts from conservatism's message. For reaction from the left, let's bring in Rachel Maddow, whose show airs on Air America Radio every weeknight from 6 to 8 Eastern. Rachel, thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So unlike John Edwards, you are gay. So were you satisfied with the statements from the GOP frontrunners reacting to Coulter?
Well, it just made me wonder where the rest of them are. I mean, Tom Tancredo and Sam Brownback and even Dick Cheney were at this event. And it makes you wonder if those guys are okay with what she said since they didn't denounce it. I mean, we heard from Giuliani, we heard from McCain, and we heard from Romney all saying they weren't cool with it. But all the rest of them, it kind of makes you wonder. Giuliani, McCain, and Romney are really the only ones who might have a chance at imagining themselves at some point in the general election campaign. You could see how they'd want to denounce remarks like this just because they were so over the top. But these other guys, they're kind of running for status within the Republican Party. And it makes me worry that people who are running for status within the Republican Party would see it necessary to suck up to somebody like Ann Coulter in order to get that status. That makes me worry about the Republicans.
And Rachel, we mentioned some of these conservative bloggers who say that Coulter is sending the wrong message or is at least distracting from the real message of American conservatism. That said, why do you think conservatives continue to give Ann Coulter a podium and a microphone?
Ann Coulter is a conservative rock star. What American woman conservative sells more books than Ann Coulter? What American woman conservative, what American conservative period gets a more rapturous response from conservative audiences than Ann Coulter does? She is essentially the most well-known face of the conservative movement in America today. And I mean, her folk hero status on the right is something that the left hasn't made up. It's evident when you hear the applause for even these very extremist remarks that she makes. So, you know, maybe she was not emblematic of mainstream conservative thought, but she's really at the heart of the conservative image in America.
All right, and let's talk about Rudy Giuliani. He is, in particular, known for supporting gay rights and gay causes. He himself, I believe, has dressed in drag before, and there are pictures to prove it. He has gay friends. I mean, the list goes on. Is the Republican Party big enough to allow Giuliani and Ann Coulter in the same big tent?
If it were, then Giuliani would not have spent the entire time that he's been running for president thus far apologizing for his previously not anti-gay enough stances. I mean, Giuliani, the only thing he said about gay people recently is that he's very strongly anti-gay marriage. That's not something that you do if you really want to make part of your platform that you endorse equal rights for gay and lesbian Americans. I don't think that there's a split in the Republican Party on gay issues. I think there's a tiny splinter of the Republican Party in which it's okay. But really, if you look at what all of these candidates are having to do in order to punch their ticket with groups like CPAC, with these conservative groups like this one at which Ann Coulter reared her ugly head, I mean, they have to hit the anti-gay button. They have to hit the anti-abortion button. At this point, there isn't much else that conservatives agree on besides being anti-abortion and anti-gay and maybe that global warming is caused by trees.
All right, so you mentioned Ann Coulter, biggest bookseller there for the Conservatives, and she does have guest appearances booked on both CNN and Fox tonight. Are her TV bookings and her books themselves the reason why she keeps saying what she's saying? I mean, she's a smart woman.
Well, she's smart in the sense that she's snappy, she's fast. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm of two minds about even talking about her, because I know that Ann Coulter needs publicity in the same way that a tapeworm needs a large intestine. I mean, this is the environment that makes it possible for her to continue to make a living doing what she does. But I think the real question is whether or not the conservative movement and the Republican Party, as represented by the conservative movement, wants her to be the face of who they are to America. Do they want Ann Coulter to continue to be the best-known conservative in America, or are they really going to stop inviting her to all these events? It remains to be seen.
I was going to say, your prediction would be ...
I don't think so. I mean, they've let her get away with a lot thus far. I'm not sure that this is going to be the thing that puts her over the edge. I wish it were, but I don't think it's going to be.
All right, Rachel Maddow, host of The Rachel Maddow Show on Air America Radio. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.